So, as you know, you're in the lunar technology track, and Shaya Mohan is going to talk to us. Let's see, you are working with the guidance, navigational, and control team at Team Indus, right?
Yes, that's right.
Cool. And your presentation is a lunar micro-orbiter mission for generating a high-resolution and accurate digital elevation model of the South Polar region. And that sounds fascinating. I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, so can I start?
Yep, go ahead and start.
Well, thanks, Ben. As you just read out the title, it's quite informative in the title itself. So what we can make out from the title is that it's going to be a lunar orbiter mission of the microclass range, and its main duty is to get a digital elevation model, especially of the South Polar region. And of course, since we already have DEM of those region, what we are guaranteeing is more resolution or high resolution and accurate digital elevation model. So that's the gist of my presentation. And you already introduced me. I'm Shyam. I work with Team Indus. You might be aware that Team Indus was one of the 5 finalists of the GLXP contest, and it ended without any winners. But we at Team Indus here are still putting all our efforts in the hopes that we'll make a mark on the mission or mark on the moon soon. So let's begin. Okay, just an overview of my presentation. As I said, the aim is to get higher resolution and higher accurate DEM of the South Polar region. The impact of this particular data is that you can build up low-cost lunar landers, and we'll see how that can be achieved by this particular data product. That is one aspect of the high-resolution DEM. Second thing is, of course, what is the currently available DEM? What are their drawbacks? What are we guaranteeing from this mission? So that's the literature survey and the data specs of the existing data. And so what we are proposing is a high performance push broom scan radar. So this particular radar, what it does is it can cover maximum region in minimum duration of time. So that is the highlight of this presentation. And we'll conclude by the different significance that this mission brings in, the scientific return value from the mission, and the future implication what this mission can bring. So that's the overview of the orbiter mission. So, like I pointed out, the main aim is to generate a DEM. So DEM is basically XY coordinates associated with lat longs, and with Z value being the datum radius. So you have a 3D map of a terrain. So that is what is DEM. So what are the importance of this? So it has 2 parallel tracks. One is definitely the topographic information, and the second one is actually the illumination. You can always say that illumination is actually derived from topography. That's true, but these have 2 different implications on the design of a spacecraft. So if you look at topography, the main thing is landing site characterization, and also the precision landing. So before going to a particular location, you always do landing site characterization. You characterize the hazards, and you get a good in-depth analysis of those particular region, and say whether a mission is going to be successful at the first place or not. And second thing is precision landing. As you might be knowing, all the landing that is attempting polar landing will look for precision landing, because the payload is the driving criteria. The payload wants to go to a particular location because it's of high science return. So the precision landing is of great importance in future missions to the polar region. So these 2 criteria actually depend on this DEM. So we'll concentrate on this particular aspects. Other data products include contour maps, hill shape, slopes. So these are other data that you can derive out of a topography. And coming to illumination, illumination can give you a deep insight into power generation. Let's say what percentage of your landed time has sunlight, so you can generate power. So what could be the period of operations which is driving the entire landing. So a great insight into power generation, and also surface temperature variations. These are other data or value that you can derive from a digital elevation model. So it has a lot of information contained in it, and what we are trying to do is a higher resolution than what is currently available. Okay, now coming to the past missions, Clementine was one of the first few missions to get a high resolution DM in the 1995, but it always have some gaps. For example, the gaps between two spots that the laser could scan could be in the order of several kilometers, and there was no much data available more than the 78-degree latitude. So that was one of the first mission that tried to get the data DEM. Second was Kaguya, the Japanese mission. Even it suffered from interval gaps like 1.6 kilometers. You can see that was mainly because the low frequency of operation of the laser, like 1 hertz, and in orbital velocities like 1600 meters per second, you always have gaps like 1.6 kilometers. So high frequency operation is what is required today to fill all these gaps. And coming to Chang'e, even Chang'e had attempted a similar thing, but again, it also suffered from gaps like 1.4 kilometers. And Chandrayaan 1, as you know, it had a spot size of around 100 meters, so you will not get high resolution data from that. The best resolution that we have today is from the laser algometer onboard LRO mission, reconnaissance orbiter. Even it had suffered from cross-track gaps like 160 meters at 85-degree latitude. But over the time, when you increase the number of, it's been more than 10 years that LRO is in orbit. So over the time, you keep collecting data and you can fill in those gaps. And today what we have is the best data that we have today is from the LRO mission. Okay. Now, this is a, just to give a visual representation of the South Polar region that people are really excited about. You can see that the center is the Shackleton crater, this red spot, and at the top you have Malapert region. So this is a 300 cross 300 square kilometer region, and what you can make out from this is that there are long shadows. The lighting conditions are really poor. So what it means is that visual camera based techniques for sheer DM generation might not be apt for such a location. What we need is active lasers. So we'll be concentrating on how a laser or lidar can get high resolution DM of these regions. So that's about the region that we are trying to concentrate on. Now, okay, this is a typical lunar descent profile. You can see that the around altitude of 12 kilometers, you will do a precision landing technique. For example, I can store some information on board, and then I can match it during my autonomous descent, and then achieve precision landing. So so definitely you need some data to be stored on board. And if you have higher resolution data, then what I can do is I can keep coming down and still get matches from the terrain that I see during my autonomous descent. So what I can say is that even if you have high resolution data, you can keep processing this onboard information at lower altitudes, and you can use low cost IMUs, and then you can still achieve that precision landing that you want to achieve. And for example, this particular profile also used velocity meters, which is around 10 kg, and high power devices. So you can get rid of these sensors if you have high resolution data. So essentially what I can say is that high resolution data can always give you a low cost lander configuration that can achieve precision landing in polar regions. So that's about the importance of high resolution data. Now, what do we have today? So today, within 85-degree latitude, we have a resolution of 10 meter per pixel, but what we are targeting is 3 meter per pixel. So you can see that a 70% improvement is there if we can achieve it. Second thing is, within lat, because always the resolution is higher towards the pole. So you can see that Lola had 5 meter per pixel within 87.5 degree latitude. What we can guarantee is 3 meter per pixel, which is again 40% improvement. So definitely we can get higher resolution data from what is existing. Another aspect of the DEM is not just resolution but also the accuracy. Accuracy is another important factor that can contribute to landing errors. So what we are targeting is 10 meter per pixel with a vertical accuracy of less than 1 meter per pixel. So this is what is our target, and its comparison with the data that is available today. Now, okay, now I want to highlight a very important thing, because people usually interchangeably use resolution and accuracy and confuse within each other. To just give you an example of resolution and accuracy, you can think of an analog watch. Let's say I have an analog watch. Its resolution is 1 second, right? And let's imagine that you have a digital watch whose resolution is in milliseconds. You might think that you are having a better data, but not necessarily. What if your watch is 1 hour slow, and what if my watch is just 5 minutes slow? So resolution and accuracy are both important factors, and these two are different things, and we have to be careful in how we associate value, and we should not be carried away by the factor that you have a high resolution data. It's also important that you need a high accurate data. So that's what I want to say. Just to give you an example, through an example, you can see this square is actually a 100 meter by 100 meter grid location. So each and every, let's say I have a 10 meter per pixel resolution data, I'll be covering this 100 meter by 100 meter by so many 100 pixels. So 10 rows and 10 columns will give me 100 pixels. So suppose I have a 10 meter per pixel resolution data, I'll be having 100 pixels in a 100 by 100 square meter region. But usually these data are interpolated. Usually these data are interpolated 50% of the time, which means I will not be having complete data, but I'll be having only 50% of the data, which means in a 100 meter by 100 meter region, if I eliminate 50% of the data, what I'll be left out with is just 5 by 5, which is 25 square pixels. So in a 100 meter by 100 meter region, all that I'm having is 25 pixels only. And we are trying to target precision landing in this area with so small information. Now, this is about the resolution. What if it is inaccurate? Inaccuracy, what it means is that these data are not in exact location as you think, but it could be plus or minus 20 meters away. So that's what I have eliminated a few pixels. You can see red color pixels here. Yeah, so these red color are eliminated pixels. So at the end, in a 100 meter by 100 meter location, you have been given only 15 square pixels of information. 15 square pixel means it's like four rows and 4 columns of information. So what information will you get from 4 pixels is the question. So this is the motivation behind the need for a high resolution and high accurate data for achieving precision landing, especially in polar regions. As you know, people are focused on this polar region, but no missions have ever successfully even attempted landing. The best in the coming we'll see Masten and Astrobotic going to these locations, so they'll be the first if they do so. So that's about the importance of a high resolution as well as a high accurate DEM that is needed for achieving successful landing. So suppose if you are left with only so small information, it is definitely not sufficient. It's definitely not sufficient for proper understanding of the region that we are actually going. Okay, so now let's say that what you see here is actually orthographic projection of the polar region. The center is actually the pole, the P represented by P, and what you see is two latitudes. One is at 87.5 and the other is at 85-degree latitude. So let's say that this entire region is divided into multiple sectors. These sectors are nothing but the ground traces that my orbiter is actually tracing. Let's say there are around 4,320 orbits. So 4,320 orbits I can cover in 1 year mission, assuming that the orbital velocity is around 2 hours. So with 4,320 orbits, I'll be left out with a subtended angle around theta, and there will be gaps of G1 and G2 at different latitudes. For example, G1 is around 50 meters and G2 is around 100 meters. So there is cross-track gaps even if I cover the polar region with 4,000 odd orbits. So there is a need to cover these gaps. How do we cover these gaps? If suppose my laser payload that I am using for getting this ranging information is very small, you will not be able to cover these 100-meter gaps. So what you have to do is, or what we are thinking of doing is a scanning radar. A scanning radar which can do a push broom kind of scan. If I have a push broom width of around 100 meters, and then I think my problem is solved. I'll be able to cover the entire polar region within the 85-degree latitude in a 1 year mission, and still get higher resolution like 3 meter per pixel data I'll be getting. So that's about the cross-track gaps that I wanted to point out. So yeah, so like I said, this is the push broom scan. You can see that there's a 100 meter width scanning can be done if suppose my laser spot is around 21 meter in diameter, and what you see is actually a 5x5 EPD pixel size. If I combine two pixels at a time, then I should be able to get that 6 meter per pixel data, and with 50% interpolation I should be able to get 3 meter, which is my target. So this is the scan that we are thinking about, with each spot being around 21 meters, and these scans are operated at a very high frequency, like 500 hertz. It's definitely on the higher side. We can think of solutions like multiple beams. Let's say you have 2 beams at a time, then you don't need 500 hertz. All that you need is 250 hertz. So we are looking at those options as well, because multiple laser heads also will increase the reliability and also redundancy. So these are the different options and the trade-off that we are doing to get the right push broom kind of scan that will meet our objectives. So that's the that's about the scanning, which will solve all my cross-track gaps, which was around 100 meters. Now this is the proposed design. So when you have a scanning, these needs to be actuated. These are actuated by something called as fast steering mirrors at the transmitter side as well as the receiver side. So once you have this kind of scan along the cross-track direction with 100 meter width, then I think you'll be able to do what you want to achieve in a 1 year mission. So that's about the proposed payload design that we are thinking of to have a higher resolution data. Okay, that's about the architecture, and then some parameters of the laser payload that we are thinking. It's 1064 nanometer near infrared wavelength that we are thinking of, because we can always compare the results with the LOLA data, because LOLA also has used that particular spectrum. And coming to the pulse energy around 10 millijoules, it could be slightly more than that as well. Pulse width of 5 nanoseconds, and like I said, 500 hertz is the repetition frequency that we are looking at, but that can be reduced if I use multiple laser heads. So that's about some parameters of the payloads of the laser scanning payload that we are thinking of. Now coming to the payload operations. Like I said, it's a 2-hour orbit, and most of the orbit is goes into data compression and transmission, which is highlighted in green color here. And then you can look at this payload operation. All that you need is 5 minutes of payload operation. Even though your payload could be high in power, it needs to be operated in less than 5 minutes. To be precise, it could be around 3 to 3.5 minutes actually. So that's the payload operation that we're looking at, so that you can scan the polar region with 300 kilometer by 300 kilometer region. And this also requires to generate a high accuracy DEM, you need good attitude determining system. So you need a laser ranging from ground, where you can get orbit determination within a meter, within sub-meter position errors. So that is another aspect of, so that's why you have this blue color operation, which is the orbit determination of 10 minutes or less than that. And we have onboard attitude determination as well, because orbit determination is basically positional velocity. So attitude is determined on board with a star sensor and IMU combination, and this needs to be highly accurate enough to achieve the 10 meter accuracy that we are targeting. So that's a brief idea of the payload operation that we are thinking of. Okay, so like I said, to achieve highly accurate DEM, you need that precision in the attitude knowledge. So this is a brief error budget that we have given, like attitude knowledge within 10 arc seconds. Usually star sensor come in this range, biases and the random errors come in this range. There could be thermal distortions, there could be static biases, jitter. All this will contribute, and we cannot neglect the small, it's just 10 arc seconds. For example, attitude knowledge, 10 arc seconds is sufficient to, if suppose it goes beyond 10 arc second, then the precision is lost. So to give you an idea, 100 arc second will correspond to 15 meter horizontal position error. So which means your DEM accuracy is 15 meters. So which is, and our target is 10 meters. So you will have to do some in-flight calibrations and then achieve this 10 meters. So that is another aspect of getting an accurate DEM. So that's the high bonding requirements. And then the significance. Like I said, why do we need this high resolution and high accurate data? Like I said, in a 100 meter by 100 meter region, if you are left out with only 15 pixels, then it's not the right information that you have collected and believing in the mission to do the rest. It's always good to have a higher resolution data, so that you can come up with low cost lander configuration. Maybe that is the future. When maybe if you're having a tight budget, this data can definitely prove its worth in going to the polar regions. Then second thing is that it can supplement the LOLA results. LOLA was not only used for ranging, but also to measure the reflectance by measuring the energy. So what it could find out is that there is an increase in albedo in the PSR region, so which actually confirmed or suggested the presence of water ice. So that is another results that we are looking at, and we can also even check if there is any change in reflectance. So that is another additional data that we can come up with. So technology demonstration of communication relay network. Let's say this orbiter is going with the lander which is going to a polar region, and if we can establish communication relay with the lander, then it is another technology demonstration which can be useful for the future missions. So that is another aspect of or another significance of this particular mission. Then, like I said, this particular push broom scan laser will be really useful in all regions where there is no light. For example, asteroid with very low albedo, less than 0.1 albedo, you cannot use visual camera for generating DEM. You need active lasers. And if you want to use active lasers in minimum duration and cover maximum, then I think this kind of push broom scan lidar is really required. So that's about the significance of the particular mission that it can. Okay, so this is the team that is working on the orbiter mission. Prithvi, he's into the program and avionics and power side. Rakesh works in the propulsion. Nirmal, Guru, they are all-rounders. They can work on anything. Sharon, she is actually working in the mission front. And Nitish and Aditya, they are actually looking at the laser payload design and other stuff related to that. And last but not the least, that's me, Shah. I'll be looking into the signal processing aspects of it and the GNC aspect of the mission. So that's the small team that we have, and that's why I have titled as a small team but with big dreams. Okay, some references that I have collected to give you insight into the past missions and the data. So that's about the references, and I think I have completed in the right time. 26 minutes I took. So if you have any questions, maybe you can ask me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was a great presentation, very informative. We actually do have a couple of questions here. Let's see. Melissa asked, as they are in shadow, the PSRs have very little orbital data. Since the PSRs are one of the areas of most interest due to volatiles, how can we gather more information prior to prospecting missions?
How can we gather more information prior to prospecting missions? Yeah, so like I said, if they are in shadow, the payload that I have suggested is basically an active source. So you don't need external lighting conditions. So even if it is in shadow, these lasers can actually, hit those shadow regions and get back light. So lighting is definitely not a concern for an active source. If I am using visible camera, then yes, I have to be worried about the shadow. But for a laser payload, I don't have to worry about the shadows. So that's about that's about the question on shadow and PSRs. I think, yeah.
Cool. Calvin asked, is availability of power on the spacecraft one of the biggest limiting factors with respect to the power of the laser, LiDAR, and other scanning instruments? If greater power levels were available, say from a nuclear power source, could the data collection be of much higher quality and therefore faster?
Well, I think Calvin is right on spot. It is true that power is one of the limiting factors. And if you're looking for a micro orbiter, you cannot have high power because we are having a very high frequency of operation. So I think he's spot on the fact that power is the limiting factor for the scanning radars. And he's suggesting nuclear power source. Well, of course, yes, it's definitely a solution. But we're currently looking at solution on how to reduce this power so that we can do with the solar energy itself. So nuclear would be the next step if suppose we are not able to meet the power requirements from the solar panel. So I think it's spot on. But, yeah.
Oh, go on.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, well, I guess we will wrap this presentation up. Thank you so much, Shem. Really interesting. Appreciate you being here. Hope everybody has a good rest of the conference. I'll see you in another chat room or in another presentation.
Thank you. It was nice to be presenting. Yeah.